Hello, hello. I am so excited that this day has finally arrived. Little story, background story. 2 years ago, when I had my stroke and I couldn't talk, my mom sent to me a video of this guy called Tom Broussard and said, "Look at this, look at this, look at this. He can talk. He had a stroke. He had aphasia, and you have no excuse. You have something to aspire for." It was Tom Broussard. And, you know, when I think about it, he's one of the most influential people in my life, and I've never met him. And he inspired me so much. And I'm going to bring up Tom without further ado. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
I am doing great. So you have a lot of things to say because in a good way. Tell me about this story, your story.
Thank you, Paul. I do appreciate being on your show. And it's great that you started your show not all that long ago. So it's wonderful that you are lining up these folks who have lots of things to do, as you say, things to talk about. So I really do appreciate it for sure. I really do. And my amazing story, of course, it's interesting because the more we work on our understanding, the less amazing we become. You and me both, and many other as well. It does turn out that people, it really depends on a lot of things, including severity. That's no doubt about it. But on top of that, what it really does require is having the motivation that does come with who you are today and who you probably were before your stroke. And that becomes, I think, one of the keys. Activities is also another key. But in terms of my amazing story, I have a story. It's not so much amazing. Just because I had my stroke, it now turns out time goes by quickly. It's now 8.5, almost 9 years. And time goes fast because for me, every single day, once I got better enough to then start to organize my future, every day was today. So today is what it was, I say 9 years ago, not really, because I had to get better. But once I got to that point, I'm clapping too. Yeah, exactly. But once I got to that point, I started to realize that the brain really does do what it does. And it does it, I'll say it on its own. That's not the truth either, but you do get better based on the activities that induce. That's a great new word, we induce. It's a short word, but really does is it triggers things. It makes things happen in your brain. And we use that word induce. And all these activities, you know, you need how to be able to speak well, you have to speak. You want to write better, you have to write. You want to do any number of things, you have to do those things. Exactly. No matter how badly they are, you just have to do them. And I got better because I did all of those things without knowing that they were therapeutic. It was just my habit to do that.
You know what, Tom? When I saw your story that you charted every single bit of your progress, I adopted that habit. I have journals and journals and journals where I would write, where I would read, where I would record and watch it. I could chart my progress. This is working for me. This is not. I need to do more of this, less of this. It became crystal clear that anybody can learn something every day. You just have to give yourself a chance to learn.
Right. Yep.
You have
Absolutely.
to do the work.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, now I forget what I was about to say.
That's okay. Me too.
That's right.
We talked about yesterday about this bubble that we found ourselves in. Talk about aphasia and this urgent need to make people aware.
Great question. And that bubble, it's interesting because if there are 2.5 million people with stroke and aphasia, it turns out that we're sort of trapped in that bubble because we talk to each other. You and I talk to each other. We talk to all of our friends. I'm looking at them here. There are some SLPs in the world, so the speech therapists, but they're either us as patients, person with aphasia, and our friends who are in the world of speech therapy. Not many go beyond that to talk to students, politicians, police, business people, education, high school, elementary school, right? Photosynthesis is all about the 4th, 3rd grade kids learning about how we convert light into green leaves. Nobody knows anything about plasticity, which really converts thought and cognitive activities into neuromatter, into how the brain creates and learns such that we can now grow those branches and leaves, the dendrites and the synapses, and begin to speak again, when we couldn't speak before. And that is why we're in that bubble. We need to educate 100% of the United States, not just a little bit. Right now, it's 8% are aware about aphasia. Well, there's about us with it and our family and caregivers. That's about 7 or 8%. Nobody else knows a damn thing, including many people who actually have stroke.
Why, Tom?
Have lost their language, and they still don't know it's called aphasia. Why is that? Why is that? It continues to be very interesting. One thing, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We need to break out of that, of course. We need to go to the other 300 million people who don't know anything about it. And one of the issues is the hospitals. Believe it or not, and I do say this a lot, including 2 presidents of hospitals, because I know I feel bad, and I know they feel bad on my behalf when I am showing it to them, but I do bring my laptop, and I have told the president of more than one hospital, let's go to your website and let's look on here. See this search box? Let's put in aphasia. Bunk. It opens up and it says, sorry, we don't know what that is. How can you have an accredited hospital, and many of them are now accredited, who use everything about stroke? If they happen to mention anything, they will talk about communication issues, but that's a common way down here at the bottom. They will not use the lexicon of aphasia, and it'll actually tell us, after your stroke, we have to make sure you are stable physically and ready to go to the next stage of rehabilitation. They will not tell you have aphasia. They'll say, I see you can having trouble speaking. That's okay. You have to let your brain settle down, and they're going to send you off. In my case, it took a month. You mentioned before, in your case, it took 6 weeks.
Yes.
What are you going to do without something to do with you and your family? Yes, I know you can go online, find out all kinds of stuff. I got 2 pieces of paper from one hospital printed out from the next hospital place, rehab. They printed out and gave it to me, and it had lots of stuff, including the word that says this is what aphasia is. That was it. And yes, I could have done things online, which of course I couldn't do. My family could have and did. What I am telling everybody, and I know we're going to talk about this is one of the keys, because when you have stroke and aphasia and your family, they don't know anything. They need to get something physical that they can take with them. They go, oh, this is what it's all about. I don't know a damn thing about this until you open it up and you get to see the pictures that allows them to understand, oh, I can see those pictures. I couldn't talk about it, but it helped me a lot to see all of these pictures, and then easy information, but little by little, I began to become aware. And I always wanted something like that. This is the key. Everybody needs to have something like this. So that's one of the things we need to work on, breaking out of our bubble.
When I found myself in this situation, I was searching for anything that might help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't read that well initially, so I was confused, and I wanted somebody to please tell me what was going on with my life. You know, I didn't know what aphasia was. I didn't know what motor apraxia was. I didn't know what dysarthria was. All I was told is I had all that.
Yes.
Able to talk.
Yes.
My family was told in front of me, my 5 kids were told in the stroke hospital when I originally had my stroke, your daddy will never talk again. Maybe limited, maybe a sentence. And so my kids were looking at me so sad. And all I wanted to do was, what was the way forward? Point me at some resource. It's a big problem. I told you yesterday, when I was in the hospital May 7th on the stroke floor, the nurse didn't even know what aphasia was. She said, I think it's some kind of language disorder. I said, sit down. You got to be kidding me. How long have you worked here?
Yeah. They haven't been educated enough, that for sure.
How can we help get this book in the hands of people?
Well, the book, I know I'll continue to hold this up because, this is what you need. But in addition to that particular book, the fact that a person with aphasia wrote that book, the people with aphasia are the ones that have to break out. I think you, me, and lots of other people need to basically lead the speech language pathology industry to realize that it's very important that we talked the other day about the police. There are a couple of police people with great communities who have had education for the police about stroke and aphasia. That is incredibly helpful. If there is one, there are thousands and thousands around the country who don't know anything. And as a result, you think that I'm drunk. Thank goodness I had my little
exactly
card. But if you don't have that, people say, let's get the security come over here and talk to you. It's just having problems, and you need not just that card, you need to educate the people there so that whenever they're checking you in, checking you out, they can begin to tell, oh, this person may be or is because they have a card, or they've been here before, and never thinking that the first thing you think is, oh, they're just drunk, and get some help. So yes, I think that it requires the people with aphasia to lead the industry in a new, and I'll say not different, but definitely a more energetic way to educate 100%, not just a little bit. 100% of people know about stroke. 100% know about COVID-19. None of us knew that 4 months ago. Exactly. So we can adapt really fast. We can learn really fast. How about something puts it up on as a PSA to the world, and within 4 months, the whole United States will know about aphasia. But
we have to do
what
that.
You need. It needs to go viral.
Somebody just order your book. Say, thank you.
Thank you.
And my daughter has joined us. Hey, Kobe. So good to see you. I miss you so a lot, a lot. You know,
Hi, Kobe.
Tom, how can we change the outbound program? How do we get this onslaught of education? How do we
Yeah.
do?
One step at a time. One step at a time, right?
Right.
The like I say, one step at a time. I think that there are we have to enlist troops of people. You, me, Carolyn is one of those.
Yes.
Carolyn is on your line. She is very good about awareness. There's a lot of people who are aware about aphasia. There are some people who are more understanding about awareness from the SLP's perspective as well as our perspective, and Carolyn happens to be one of those. So I think we need, and it's going to take, I say years. I started the next 2024 because we've done 2 surveys, one in 16, one in 20, just recently, talking about aphasia awareness by the National Aphasia Association. They did a survey. The first one in 16 was 8.8% of the United States were aphasia aware. Wow. Believe it or not, unfortunately, the percentage went down. In 2020, it went down to 7% are now aphasia aware. It's a small population sampled, but still, it requires that for the next 4 years, we need to have books, we need to have PSAs, we need to have funders, we need to have state-by-state organization. I started another company recently called Aphasia Awareness for All as a nonprofit. The book is part of it, then the organization, then I have several more steps that will come out over the next couple of months, actually encouraging various communities and states to adopt their own goals. And I'm from Maine, and it's a fairly small state. So I'm going to be working with groups up there to become 100% aware in their state. If I can get to that in 4 years, it'd be wonderful. Good. One state.
One of the things I am staggered by has the overall lack of awareness, even at neurologist level, even at pharmacy level. And people, when you go out and talk to people, when you have aphasia, and they don't know what it is, they tend to look at you like something's wrong. You know, one of the things that I had to deal with, I was such a great communicator in my previous life. And I was used to being heard, but I felt like I lost my voice. And people, I've got on a mission to make people aware about aphasia. And I'm glad to have you on my show. And because you've done so much more than anybody else, but I want to help you. Jerry Wald says, I will get your newest book, Tom. So
thanks, Jerry.
I love Jerry. He is a great guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's next? What can we do to provide real education on our level? Anybody that can help, we want to help.
Well, it's like a tide, it comes and goes. What you were talking earlier with the world of speech therapy, they know an awful lot about their world, their lexicon, their science, how the brain works from a scientific perspective. But not enough, basically treating you and me as day-to-day researchers of stroke and aphasia, right? That's what we do every single day. And I'll say we don't get a whole lot of credit. We get lots of credit, again, because we have our friends. You and I have our friends.
Exactly. In the community, we do.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we need more than that, of course. We need to get pulled in as experts about aphasia that can better understand how we can explain to even stroke educators, stroke therapists, we can explain to them how we are seeing things from the inside in a way they can better understand. Because otherwise, what we, the people with aphasia, get is from the therapist what they think about what we think. It's not the same. It's not the same. And I do remember that, for example, it was in my first or second assessment when they referred to that I was aware of my deficits. That's always a big deal. It actually shows up. It actually shows up here, and because it's said by the therapy that I was aware of my deficits. Well, that meant because they said, "Can you speak?" And I probably said, "Uh-huh." Well, half the time when you say "uh-huh," you really mean no.
Exactly.
Right? And on the inside, I could see, again, at the very beginning, I really couldn't understand much at all. But as we went forward, I could tell that even though I'd been asked, "Are you aware of your deficits?" I kept saying, and I did say it, not well done, but I did say, "I don't understand what that means." You kept saying awareness of my deficit. What does that mean? Right?
Exactly.
Now I know, but I had to understand what I was seeing on the inside and come back out and say, it's a huge difference of being aware when you were typing in your with your therapy and you had to get questions and you would say yes or no and write things down, as opposed to go home and write in my diary. It was a completely different modality, more way of doing things. And I could later tell that even though my grades were going up with my therapy quizzes and tests, at home, I began to see what I was writing didn't make sense. And that meant it doesn't matter how well my grades were, I still couldn't read or write well here at home. And I was aware that my deficits only later. I was not aware at the beginning when they kept saying, "Are you aware?" And I kept saying, "Yes." It really meant, "Yeah." Are you aware? No.
What about, Jerry asked a question. What about using a keyboard for speech therapy?
Well, when I use the word modality, what I really mean is the way we do things. So you don't get bothered by that long word. It becomes a shortcut to it, but it's just the way we communicate. So when we use to say something and we want to write it down by hand, that is one kind of way, meaning one kind of modality. It's also one kind of deficit, as opposed to writing on a keyboard. That is a different kind of that way, meaning a different kind of modality. So you can actually be more able to work off of a keyboard than writing, or you can write better by hand than you can on a keyboard, because it requires completely different approaches to how you're trying to communicate. Why is that? When you're writing by hand with a pen, the fluency that translates your thought into words, right? You can see as I do this, it looks more fluent. It has a fluent effect to writing, as opposed to now you want to write, let's say you want to write the word speech therapy. Well, speech therapy, written badly, misspelled, doesn't matter. Now I have to write the same word with a keyboard. Speech. Okay, speech. You know what that is? Okay, somebody tell. Oh, S. Speech, right? it takes a lot longer for you
Exactly.
to just come up with one letter, never mind one word, never mind speech therapy. So yes, you definitely can use a keyboard, which I did. But later I got to tell there was quite a difference between writing off of a keyboard and writing with my own hand.
You know, when I first started writing, I was so frustrated because I would leave the verbs out. I, w-
Oh, definitely.
I would write the entire sentence and I would read it. That doesn't make sense. But in my mind, I was writing the actual words.
Right.
And people don't understand that, but I just continue to practice, practice, practice. And I got better. I was writing like it got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Another thing just came up too is it turns out that socialization turns out to be incredibly important.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just a little bit. Somehow people think, oh, it's just fun to converse and play cards and well, that's good. It does help. It turns out that socialization is huge because now we go back to the way by which we communicate. If you and I both have stroke and aphasia, but even online, you can tell the body language, even before you get to be able to speak well, you can tell by the way somebody smiles, how they're nodding thoughtfully, you're going through it with your hands. You can begin to tell that the two of us are communicating, but without that, you wouldn't have that. So socialization is huge. I never got to see another person with stroke or aphasia until 4 months later. I keep saying 4 months later, and I was so excited because I went to a group at the Boston University Aphasia Resource Center. I was so amazed because I didn't even know, not that I was the only one, I knew there were other people, but I didn't know if there were 10 of us or a million of us because I didn't know any of that, right? Talk about awareness. And when I went in there, I told them I was thrilled in whatever words I was saying. And it was wonderful. And that began, for me, I began to understand that another component of how we get better is because we can communicate collegially. We can communicate together with us, like you and me. And now I am now part of several different groups. And we did start playing cards. Highly therapeutic. You should get one of my articles about how incredibly helpful it is to, quote, induce, to create more plasticity, meaning learning, even just by playing cards, as an example.
You know, when I went to speech therapy, finally, I went to Tampa and I went to the Aphasia Center, and for 8 weeks, took 3 weeks. I went 3 weeks, took a week off. I changed their mode of doing business with me because I took 3 weeks. I took a week off and practice for 8 weeks altogether. When I walked in that place, I was so thrilled that I could actually interact with another person with aphasia.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I met Felisa Hurry, one of my good friends, and she achieved her doctorate degree recently. She spoke 6 languages, wiped out by a stroke. She's one of the most amazing people I have ever met. But that gave me hope. That gave me hope because I had a new community that I felt a part of. Met Kayla Fredericks, Gabby, so many people that gave me hope and gave me a reason to get up, a reason to continue. It motivated me and inspired me. So tell me, what's the first thing that a person with aphasia should do Yeah, I believe you have to be your own speech advocate.
Hmm.
I believe that. But obviously any book or resource will help, but what's the mindset
Mhm.
of an aphasia person? What's the mindset you ought to adopt? Because it's hard. It's hard, Tom. It's hard.
Yeah, it's a great question, Paul. A difficult question to answer. But even just talking about your question is
Mhm.
becomes part of the answer to all of us that are listening to this now. Um, the silver bullet, as they say, there's almost nothing we can quote say. If somebody else, if I was the person who is younger, it's like vampires. When you become stroke and aphasia, you become senior. So somebody has a stroke yesterday, I hold over the person behind me, right? So it's always that way. So if I am the younger, I just had it, and I'm meeting you, and you know it. Uh, you uh, uh, you are in a position to talk about it, but I still can't understand. So it's not like you can quote tell me anything. However, in my case, I think you need the environment, or you need to know who you were before and actually engage with who you were before. So you have to think about it, and not like you can tell me, okay, Tom, think about what you used to do. You have to be who you were. And I would think that the best way our therapist can do is create this environment that allows me to begin to explain who I was before. And maybe as I got, quote, better, as I saw my past and used my past as a lever to my future, I began to think like that without being told that, because nobody can tell you other than, here, take these tests and do it more repetitively, and maybe you will get better. That could be true, but you have to also be thinking your way through it and understanding who you were before. So that the environment is what's needed. And if you don't have the right environment, meaning presented to you by your therapist, all you have is your family and friends, if you're doing okay, and or your own memory. And that is the environment from which you can then study your own memory of how you used to do these things before.
It all turned for me when I started learning my work. I've spoken for years and years and years. All of a sudden, I said, I want to learn my work. I was highly energized to learn my work. My granddad's quote, I will be a prisoner of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Passion prevails when everything else fails. I was so excited about learning.
Mm-hmm.
And when I could learn my own way back to doing what I love to do, that's what highly inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point. My husband can fully understand, but he can't read and is learning to write with his left hand. We all have a story, don't we, Tom?
Yeah.
So many people have aphasia, and it's a battle, a daily battle, but we can do it. Just believe you have to have energy and enthusiasm for life. I believe that you have to get up every day, just be thankful and grateful that you have a second chance, and I believe we can do so much more than we think we can.
Yeah.
What do you believe about that? Do you believe there's any plateau?
No. No. The I know it's been said in the distant past that plateau occurs, or did occur, and even today, people will say, "Oh, basically, you're going to do the best you can in the next 6 months, maybe a year, but after that, well, just saying those words,
Debilitating.
not true. It's not true. You cannot not learn. And since plasticity is all about learning, it is the foundation for all learning. If you're having this conversation here today and you learned a new word, whatever it might be, that is the way the brain works. It now remembers that word today, can use it tomorrow. That means you are learning. I know, so there is no plateau. I do understand that if this is the threshold that you want to get to and be able to communicate very, very well, and you are here, and if you keep working, it can continue to go up, 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 and yet you can still tell that you haven't yet gotten to the critical mass of being able to get across that bridge. That takes time, and it can take for the rest of your life to continue to move forward. Now, you can also, there are other activities that can be adapted, so you can actually, when I say fake some things to get through that, but I fake a few things when I'm speaking so that people can't really quite tell when I'm making mistakes, but others can tell. So I work hard to make sure that unless I let people know, I try to get past them. But it's possible that you could never get to where you want to be, but that's not a plateau, because you're always going to get better, always going to get better.
You know, Carolyn said plateau means it's time for a new therapist. Yay, Carolyn. You know, I have a philosophy, learn something every day, invest something every day, and teach something every day. So I can learn a word, a phrase, a sentence. I can learn to use my inflection better. I can learn to pause, develop cadence. I can learn to do a lot of things. I can learn every single day. I can invest in myself every single day. And I can teach a new strategy every single day that will help me learn. So it's a continual loop of learning.
Right.
Continual loop of learning.
Right. And you know what? One of the things, you know, most people are referred to as stroke survivors. That's pretty much how people typically talk about it. That's why I adopted changing to stroke educators, because yes, if you're a survivor, that means something. It means you did survive. But if that's all you can do is survive, then that has a different connotation, a different way of thinking about it. If you become an educator, then you realize that when I'm with other people with stroke and aphasia, I am learning every single day from them. And that makes them become educators, and me an educator as well. I met a fellow in one of my groups who he is still mute. He can say a yes or a no, but even difficulty saying that. Lost his right side. He still can't write with his left hand, but he does draw. And it turns out he is drawing, I'm saying, these are beautiful pictures of birds. I mean, really, really beautiful pictures. I mean, professional, you know, with his left hand. So even in his group, he is drawing while we were all talking about one thing or another. He's understanding, but he can't communicate at all. But he is drawing while we are watching. And I'm thinking, this guy can make some money, you know, can go forward, because he can really, really draw well. And he'd never drawn anything before with his dominant hand. Wow. This is all brand new. Yeah. So it's, when you talk about new friends, you know, if you're a person with aphasia and you have other new friends who are also people with aphasia, you become new friends who can better understand how we actually do communicate than others who, okay, you had stroke and aphasia. What are we going to do tomorrow? Let's, you know, they're not really thinking, let's take the next step of what does that really mean? Talk to me more about it from a person who is not aphasia aware, other than knowing who you are, not wanting to know much more.
Exactly. I want to give all my audience a gift. The first 20 people that say so and write me on Instant Messenger. I'm going to give Tom the ability. I'm going to buy 20 books from Tom, the ABCs of Aphasia. Tom's going to autograph it, and I'm going to send it out. The first 20 people, I just want to give that gift because Tom helped me so much. I can't probably, if I look at it, 10 people have really influenced my stroke recovery. He's in the top 3, and he didn't even know it. And, thank you, Tom. I mean it. You don't know how much you have educated people.
Thank you, Paul.
It means a lot. So I believe it's time. It's really time that we bring to the forefront aphasia education, and you have been on the forefront of that. But we need to join you and everybody in stating our case. We have something to say. I have something to say, and it's really important that we do this. So I want to play a little game with you. Say the first thing that comes to mind, 1 minute or less. Ready? Mindset.
So mindset, that is the way that we need. We need to have a positive mindset, and that's the way it is. I know other people have said, even in the program today, that a mindset is a terrible thing to lose, right? And if you had it before, a positive mindset before, that gives you a big leg up in how you're going to get better with aphasia. It just takes a long time, I know, if you don't have a positive mindset. But one of the things to do is to join other groups, other stroke groups, because then, and I do have friends of mine who are still having a hard time, but they are in that room. So that's the most amazing thing, because I sit with my one friend and I talk to him all the time, and he understands now. He is happy to be there. So in terms of his mindset, he is ready to go, even though he's still mute. He has a hard time. He has to use his wheelchair. He is happy to be there. And believe it or not, we've been playing card games, and he has been winning. And we can't even communicate. He just has figured it out. And actually, all the rest of us go, how does this happen?
He keeps winning. An amazing thing. What about practice? Practice.
The practice is very interesting because they say that the 5 rules of aphasia recovery is motivation and practice. And now, of course, it doesn't have to be that a therapist says, okay, Tom, go home and practice these words 10 times with these same words. That is one kind of practice. But how about you go home and practice by going for a walk, looking at what you see, tell me what you see, looking at those signs. This, for me, I saw these signs that I couldn't understand. I ended up taking pictures, take them home, show them to my wife. What does this say? She would say, she would say it, and I go, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I go back the next day, write it down in my diary, writing it poorly. That is all practice, using all these different ways of communicating on this otherwise verb called practice.
So I need to bring this to your attention. I have a friend who had a stroke before me. He has aphasia. He had a stroke over 6 years ago. I call him occasionally, but I can't communicate very well. I want to help him so much. What can I do for him? How can I best help him? What would you say?
I would say that Christina should get my email, which you can get off my website. I can't type from here, or Paul can. But just sending me an email, and we can take a look at that. Since he's from Maine and we're here in Florida, there are any number of things we can consider what we can do. So email, start with that.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, for sure.
How about energy in the mind, the brain, energy?
Yeah. 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 These, you go back to these motivation and practice all the time. The energy is obviously important. And if you don't have the energy, I know that that's an issue too. And it could be just a physical issue or mental issue that keeps you from putting out the energy that is needed. So again, if among the first sets of steps are that you are still not motivated enough, often means energy enough to, quote, inducing plasticity. So you have to take activity. Everything is about activity, everything. If you sit like this and you don't do anything, you will not learn as much. So you have to be involved, engaged with the world around you. That's the way it works.
You know, I have this little thing that says E up, enthusiasm, excitement produces energy and provides you edge.
Yeah.
So I wear that all the time. I said, if I can bring enthusiasm into my mindset, I get excitement by that, produces energy to practice,
right,
provides me a competitive edge every day. So I believe that's so important. One thing I believe, habits is so important. What do you think about habits? Because when I was going through speech therapy, I wasn't assigned any habits I needed to adopt. So I did my own. So how do you feel about that?
Habit is also incredibly important. I know it's something for everybody listening, because a lot of what we're talking about many of them are individually very, very important. So it isn't like you can just do one or the other. You need energy, yes. You need habit, yes. You need this environment, yes. You need all those things. But an enriched life, for many people, uses all of those activities. And most of us got to be who we are based on the habit that we have, and we develop them over time. When you were 2 years old, nobody told you to do these things. When you learned your language, you did it by osmosis. You just learned that way. But habit becomes part of who we are. And as you go forward, you begin to become more consciously aware that some of those habits that you were using, some of the bad habits you got rid of, and you were aware that that was a bad habit that you need to get rid of. But the new habits, you thought, oh, I can use more of them, because then I'll use less energy to get what I need. Any number of good things about that. So habit is incredibly important, and you have to be more aware of the habit you had before. Or if you now have aphasia and you're not necessarily aware of your habits as you had them before, then now we go back to the therapist, who now has to create a habit-inducing set of activities so that when you leave the therapist, because you're only going to get a few hours of therapy and then it's over. If you're lucky, you get into a group or have a great family and caregivers. But other than those things, you are on your own. So what the therapists have to do is create that habit-inducing activities now while you're still with them, so that that baton where you were at that sprint stage with the therapist, now you move into a marathon of marathons. This is something you have to do for the rest of your life. So this is where you have to, if you hadn't had your habits before, you have to have new habit created, and you can't, quote, create habits without continual persistent activities. And that means creating an environment with the speech therapy people to create that every single day going forward, so that you are now ready to launch, as I say, with enough lift before you run out of runway. That is the way it happens.
Just this one thing makes it worth it for the show, because people need to adopt moving forward habits they can aspire to. Carolyn wants to say thank you to Tom. So
thank you. And,
so one of the things I always ask, it's never too late to fill in the blank.
Never too late to fill in the blank.
Fill in the blank. Fill in the blank.
Well, it was interesting here. Salud said that without a commitment to a good habit, it'd be easy to give it up. And that's why people make their New Year's resolution and they forget it the next day, the day after, right? They just give up. So yes, it is a commitment to create those new habits. And then those new habits, good habits, become new, more persistent habits going forward. So yes, again, back to the activity and back to the environment with your therapy. Now back to what's that thing again? What's
It's never too late to.
Oh, well, it's never too late to not learn, for sure. You have to continue. You have to continue to do what you like to do.
That's
right?
a good point.
You have to like what you like, whatever it is.
Huh?
That's why education is such an important thing. That's why actually education more broadly, especially now with the new world of everything online, now people have to begin to understand that learning means you have to like what you do. And there were lots of classes you didn't like what you didn't like what you were there for, and you didn't like the teacher, you didn't like the topic. Well,
no way.
You know, yeah, exactly. So you have to like what you do, and now then you become really, really learned about those topics. So it has to do an awful lot to do with what you like or what you love. In my case, I happen to love aphasia.
Good.
Why? You know, here's the longer answer here, Paul. I had my research PhD late in life. I didn't get it until I was 54.
Wow.
And I thought that I wanted to do something that would mean a big question in my life for the world. I like to think in big things, you know, and I did a lot of work before that, working with people with disabilities find work. That's what I did before my stroke. Then I became disabled and I had to find work. So I had the skills for that. And after I had the stroke, I realized that I had developed all the skills I needed, missing the one more thing that I needed. And that was, quote, to have a stroke and aphasia. Not that anybody wants stroke and aphasia, but once I had it, then I realized I had all the skills I needed to then address stroke and aphasia. And now finding out later, it's all about education about aphasia. So that's how it happened.
I traveled the world delivering speeches on 6 continents. I was destined to be doing this. I believe I was destined to be doing this. God stroked me for something great. And I am really excited about what's lays in store. Mindset, never give up, practice hope, faith, and energy, stay positive, habits you can accomplish.
Yep.
Michelle, I'm really proud of you, by the way.
Yep.
Let me read a couple more comments. My sister in Maryland told me to write a book too. You should do it.
You should.
Why not? Why not? That's my new mantra this year. Why not?
Absolutely.
We can do anything. I believe that. And education is the key. It's true. So let me ask you one question. Being, by the way, you're so smart, and I love listening to you, and I get value every time. And I'm going to take a lot of notes from this broadcast. I'm going to re-watch it myself. If you had to sit down with a young person, 17, 18 years old, and you only had a minute to share one thing, what's the single greatest thing you have ever learned in your lifetime? I like asking simple questions.
Yeah, yeah. And you want me to give you a simple answer?
Yes, I do.
It's gonna happen. And I know we're running out of time, so I have a couple things I want to say before I get to that last thing. One is those 20 books that you need. So just tell everybody, I will order them. They will come to me. I'll autograph them, and then I'll ship them to you.
And I'll take care of the rest. Okay.
The other thing is the hospitals. I am working on getting a grant to have donate one copy to every hospital in the country. That's about 5,000. There's more than that, but about 5,000. Everyone with a letter to their president saying, here's what you need to do. So I have to get money to make that happen. I'm working on that. Now, back to you. The single greatest thing that you ever learned in your lifetime. Oh, man. Of course, the really, really short is everything about your life today, and not that it's the greatest, because I'm still working on doing something that's better than what I've done so far. So there's nothing greatest as much as who you are today based on what made you who you are, right? What made you who you are. And there's an awful lot that goes into how all of that works for all of us. In my particular case, I worked hard as a young person. I mean, starting in 4th grade, I always wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I always wanted to go to sea. I don't know why, because we weren't sailing people in our family, you know, we're in Philly, but I always wanted to go to the Naval Academy. And you have to do a lot of work to go to the academy. And my dad helped me, you know, with the politicians, writing letters, the whole deal. And I was also a young person. So I was sort of a year behind. So I was 16, just became 17 when I joined the academy, went to the academy. Anyway, in my junior year, we were all ready to go, put in all the paperwork. Now we all had to do was wait. And then my dad died as a junior, the day after my 16th birthday. And I, for whatever reason, he was a great, great guy. And I always thought he was a great guy. When he died, I thought, well, it doesn't matter. He's still a great guy, and it's still fixed in my head. And he, I do believe, because I didn't get right into the academy right away, and I had to wait for more. I went into a different pool, and a qualified candidate pool. And I do believe, and this is just me, that I got an extra point because my dad had died and left a wife with 4 young kids, me being older. I got that extra point, and I got into the academy. So that is sort of the beginning of me understanding, although I had to construct that memory now, not that it did really happen. My dad really did die after doing all that work, but I constructed the way I appreciated what my dad had done without him knowing that he was doing it to get over by dying. It just happened to construct your memory in a certain positive way. And that for me certainly was the beginning of understanding how the world really can work once I began to frame it that way.
Well, needless to say, you blessed me by coming on the show. I'm so thankful. My son said, "Love you, Dad." This is Chris.
Yeah.
He was
Hi, Chris.
beside me all the way. He had to deal with all this hospital crap that I went through. I wanted to say thank you to my son. Thank you, son.
Thank you. That was Father's Day yesterday too. Congratulations.
Exactly.
All of us.
He's the best. In closing, Tom, thank you. You provide so much hope for everybody. And till next Monday, be blessed. Be blessed. And I'm going to have Jerry Wald on my show next week. We're going to talk about caregivers and what we can do to help. And I believe we can do a lot. As I always say, may the speech be with you, because you never know when you're going to wake up and it's gone. So make the
Right.
speech be with you and have a level 10 day. And for Tom and me, hope
Hope is on the way.
is on the way. Have a nice day, a blessed
Absolutely.
day.
Thank you, Paul. You as well. And thanks to everybody out there.
Bye,
Nice to see
everybody.
you.
Thanks for all
Bye,
the
guys.
comments.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye, guys. Take care.